The story of the fiberglass paths in the attic of the old farmhouse I rented outside Athens, Ohio, is the reason I don't sleep under ceilings anymore. I wake up some nights, still feeling that insulation against my skin, still hearing the voice that whispered, "Careful, stay on the beams." The doctors say I just fell. They say the rest is my concussion talking. But I remember where I was standing when the fiberglass started to breathe. I'm a junior at Ohio University in Athens, Southeast Ohio. Last fall, I was broke and desperate, so I took a cheap month-to-month rental about 15 minutes outside town, past the last gas station and into rolling soybean fields. It was an old white farmhouse, a little sagging, but it had fast internet and the rent was half of what people were paying in town. The landlord, Mr. Calloway, met me in the gravel driveway. Late 50s, Carhartt jacket, smelled like cigarettes and motor oil. Inside, everything felt tired. Yellowed wallpaper, soft spots in the hardwood, that faint old house smell of dust and something sweet and stale. My bedroom was at the top of the stairs. The first thing I noticed was the square attic hatch, directly over where a bed would go. When I pointed up at it, he shook his head. "Don't go up there," he said. "No flooring, just beams and old fiberglass. You'll go straight through the ceiling. Just leave it alone, all right?" I laughed it off and said, "Sure." Cheap rent had conditions. I could live with a creepy hatch above my face. The first week felt calm. Quiet country nights, faraway train horns, crickets so loud they felt like static. I told myself I'd finally found a place where I could actually focus. The sounds start on a Tuesday night. I'm lying in bed, scrolling my phone, half asleep. The house is dead quiet. No TV, no traffic, just the occasional wind against the siding. Then I hear it. A slow, deliberate shift overhead. Not the random scurry of a mouse. A long, dragging weight, moving directly above my bed. I freeze, staring up at the ceiling. It keeps going. Creak. Pause. Creak. Like someone on their stomach, carefully crawling from one side of the room to the other. I tell myself it's a raccoon or a big squirrel. It's an old farmhouse in Ohio. Of course there are animals, but it only happens when I'm almost asleep, like it's waiting for me to let my guard down. By the third night, my nerves are shot. The crawling always follows the same path. From the far corner of the room, across the hatch, then stopping right above my headboard. I finally call a pest control company out of Athens. The guy shows up in a pickup with SE Ohio Wildlife on the door, straps on a dust mask and a headlamp, and unfolds the attic ladder. "Stay off the beams," Calloway had said. The exterminator disappears into the attic. I hear the wood creak under him, slow and careful, then go quiet. 5 minutes. 10. Then I hear him move again, but it doesn't sound like he's walking. It's more like he's deliberately following something, one careful step at a time. When he finally climbs back down, he pulls his mask off fast. His face is a little pale under the dust. "Good news," he says. "No droppings, no nests, nothing fresh. I don't see any animals up there." "So what's making the noise?" I ask. He hesitates. "The insulation's weird. There are these paths in it, long, smooth trails where it's pressed down, not like something running, more like something sliding. Real careful between the beams." At night, I take the attic hatch, masking tape all the way around, then I draw a little incline across the seam. If anything opens it, the tape breaks, the line doesn't match. Simple, the line never moves. But I wake up with fine yellow strands of fiberglass on my pillow, on my sheets, and small things in my room are just a little wrong. My keys an inch closer to the bed. A book on the nightstand turns slightly, like someone had tried to read the cover in the dark. The crawling gets slower, closer. Each night it ends in that same spot, right above where I'm lying, holding my breath. So I do something stupid. I slide my phone up into the thin gap of the hatch, hit record, and leave it there while I sleep. The next morning, I listen with headphones. At first, it's boring. House settling, wind, then the soft, rhythmic crunch of insulation. and under it, very faint, breathing. Not mine. Slow, wet-sounding inhales, much deeper than my chest could pull. At one point, it matches my breathing pattern perfectly, then keeps inhaling long after I should have exhaled. Near the end of the recording, buried in the noise, I hear my own name. Not clearly, just a whispering voice trying it out, syllable by syllable, like someone practicing a new word. I tell myself I'm imagining it. Lack of sleep, stress, but I can't ignore the way the ceiling creaks right when I think about it. I go next door to the only neighbor in sight, an old guy named Ron whose porch is stacked with firewood and faded Buckeyes flags. When I mention the attic, he looks past me at the house instead of at my face. Last kid in there didn't last long, he says. 2 months? Said he could feel the ceiling move when it crawled by, thought he was losing it. Then one night an ambulance came. After that, the place was empty a while. He shrugs like it's none of his business. But as I'm leaving, he adds, almost under his breath, Calloway's brother disappeared in that house when they were little. Searchers tore up the attic. Never found him. Just messed up insulation. Back at the farmhouse, that sits in my head like a stone. If that attic is so dangerous, why is the hatch in the bedroom? Why is there tape dust on the ceiling around it like it's been sealed and resealed for years? I start checking the rest of the house. In the downstairs hallway, behind a heavy wardrobe, I find a narrow interior door that's been nailed shut and painted over. The outline is still visible. I can feel where a doorknob used to be, right under the paint. It lines up almost perfectly under where my bed sits upstairs. That's when it clicks for me. Calloway never warned me about no floor to protect me. He just didn't want me up there. Didn't want me to see how long those fiberglass paths have been pressed into place, moving between beams, right over every bed that's ever been in that room. Sleep stops coming. It's late November. The fields outside are just dark stubble and frost. One night, after hours of listening to the slow circling crawl above me, something in me just snaps. I drag the ladder down, peel off my own tape, and push the hatch up. A sweet chemical smell rushes down, fiberglass and dust and dry wood. My flashlight beam cuts through a low space packed with pink-yellow insulation. No floor, just beams. An ocean of fiberglass with shallow, smooth channels running through it, like something has been swimming there just under the surface for years. I pull myself up, balancing carefully on one joist, then another. The house groans softly. Up here, the paths are obvious. Long, looping grooves pressed into the insulation, never breaking across the bare ceiling drywall below. Whatever made them knows exactly where to put its weight. In the far corner above my bedroom, I see a kind of nest. It's not made of sticks. It's a depression in the insulation, lined with things I recognize. Strands of my dark hair from the shower drain, threads of my blue hoodie, crumpled pages from my notebook, my handwriting still visible in the flashlight beam. It's been coming down, without touching the hatch. I'm standing over my own bed now. I can feel it. The beam under my right foot gives a tiny crack, then the insulation 2 feet away rises, very slowly, like something underneath is taking a deep breath. The fiberglass bulges, then settles, then bulges again, closer to my boot. I freeze. My flashlight shakes in my hand. The third time it rises, I see it. Right where the insulation is thinnest, there's a small round patch where the glass fibers are almost worn away. Behind that thin veil, pressed inches from the drywall, is an eye, human-looking, bloodshot, filmed over like it hasn't seen real light in a long time, staring straight up at me. It doesn't blink when the beam hits it. The insulation around it ripples instead, as if the rest of its body is sliding closer, coiling under the surface like a huge, pale worm. Back, I whisper to myself. Just step back. The beam under me cracks louder. I lunge for the hatch, but my foot slips off the joist. One leg plunges deep into the insulation. For a second, it's just the sting of fiberglass on bare skin. Then something cold and soft closes around my ankle from below. Not claws, not hands, just pressure, wrapping, pulling down. The last thing I see before the world whips sideways is that thin patch of insulation stretching, the eye vanishing as something huge surges up toward me. I wake up in a hospital in Columbus. They say I was found at the bottom of the farmhouse stairs. The attic ladder had given out. I hit my head, blacked out. Calloway tells the doctors I've been complaining about not sleeping, hearing things in the walls. They nod, write possible hallucinations in my chart. No one mentions the insulation still stuck in my hair. I move into a bland apartment building near campus as soon as I'm cleared. Drop ceilings, no visible hatch, no attic access in my unit at all. The first week is quiet. Then, one night, I wake up to a familiar sound above the new ceiling. A slow, careful shift. A long, dragging slide from one side of the room to the other. It stops right over my bed. There's a pause. Then, through the drywall, muffled but unmistakable, a voice I recognize, inches above my face. Careful, stay on the beams. If you ever move into an old American farmhouse, especially out in places like rural Ohio, look closely at the attic insulation. Those fiberglass paths might not just be from animals, because whatever is above you right now has probably already learned the sound of your breathing. This is how I found the man in my ceiling, not in a movie, not in some creepy Reddit thread, but in my cheap top-floor apartment in Seattle, Washington, while I lay in the dark pretending I couldn't hear him breathing above me. By the time I accepted he was real, he'd already been watching me for months. I move in that November, when the rain over Capitol Hill never really stops. The building is a leaning old 3-story house a few blocks from Interstate 5, chopped into crooked little apartments. Mine is the top unit, slanted floors, low ceilings, a view of downtown if I lean just right. After bouncing between roommates in Columbus, Ohio, and crashing on a friend's couch in Phoenix, Arizona, having my own place feels unreal. It's small, but it's mine. Frank, my landlord, meets me on the sagging front porch with a clipboard and his tired automatic smile. "You're lucky," he says. "Top floor. No one stomping around above you." "No attic?" I ask, glancing up the narrow stairwell, where the ceiling hangs just low enough to feel wrong. "Roof's right over you," he says. "Nothing up there but insulation and nails. Don't worry about it." I sign the lease anyway. The first night is almost peaceful. I unpack a little, stream some show, fall asleep with my laptop glowing on the dresser. Sometime after 2, I jolt awake to a slow creak directly over my bed. Then another, like someone carefully shifting their weight. I stare up at the smooth, flat ceiling. No pipes, no vents, just white paint. Old house, I tell myself. Wood settling, wind. I leave the lamp on after that. The sounds don't stop. Every night, sometime between 2 and 4, there's a soft shuffle over the bedroom. A slow drag, like fabric or a bag sliding across wood. Sometimes 3 careful taps follow, spaced out, like someone thinking. I keep telling myself it's pipes or raccoons or the roof flexing in the cold. By day, I drag myself to my support job near Pike Place Market, pretend I'm fine, answer angry calls, stare at the grey water of Elliott Bay on my lunch break. At night, the apartment feels smaller. The ceiling feels lower. Some mornings, the bedroom reeks of stale sweat, like an unwashed body has been standing beside the bed. I scrub the floor, wash the sheets, crack the tiny window. Even when the November air cuts my hands, the smell always comes back. Little things start to feel wrong. Food disappears in tiny amounts. A yogurt cup is half empty when I'm sure I never opened it. The mug I always leave on the coffee table shows up in the sink. A perfect ring on the table where it sat all night without me. I tell my mom in Tampa, Florida about the Seattle ghost. I don't tell her I'm starting to dread going to sleep. Then, one night, I lie there with the lamp off, holding my breath. The shuffling starts above me. A pause, then a soft cough from directly over my pillow. Too human, too close, followed by absolute, deliberate silence. Like someone holding their breath because they know I'm awake. The next day, I see it. In the closet, the ceiling isn't smooth. There's a faint square outlined in the paint, edges dotted with tiny patched nail holes, like someone tried to hide a hatch in a hurry, I drag a chair in, press my ear to the square. For a moment there's nothing, then a gentle drag like fabric sliding just inches above my head. That night, I prop my old phone on a stack of books, camera pointed toward the bedroom door, audio recording while I pretend to sleep. Around 3:40 a.m., the video shows nothing moving. The door stays closed, but a light sprinkle of dust falls from the ceiling near the door, and the hanging light sways once on its own. On the audio, right before the dust, there's a breathy whisper, too low to understand, too close to be anywhere except directly above me, separated by a thin sheet of drywall. The next afternoon, I show the clip to Frank in the hallway. He watches it in silence. I see his jaw tighten. "There is no attic," he says, handing my phone back. His voice is flat now. "And you need to stop looking for problems in this place." He turns and walks downstairs, and I hear him mutter under his breath, "Not again." I'm not supposed to hear that part. That evening, I stop pretending. I grab a kitchen knife from the drawer, drag the chair into the closet, and start scraping at the faint square. Paint and plaster rain down into my hair until a thin sheet of plywood appears overhead. My heart is pounding so hard I feel it in my ears. I press the flat of the knife up and push. The panel lifts maybe an inch. Then something heavy drags over it from above. A slow, deliberate scrape like a suitcase or a body sliding across the boards, pinning it shut. Whoever is up there just held it closed. I stumble out of the closet, slam the door, and call Frank with shaking hands. He shows up 10 minutes later, irritated, already talking about noise complaints and new tenants freaking out. But when he climbs a stepladder, jams a screwdriver into the panel, and finally forces it up, everything changes. A wave of hot, stale human air spills down, sour, thick, lived in. It smells exactly like my bedroom in the mornings, but stronger. Frank's face drains of color. Without saying a word, he steps away, pulls out his phone, and dials 911. I stand in the hallway, hugging myself while officers arrive, mask up, and disappear to the dark opening with flashlights. Muffled voices. One sharp curse. Then an officer leans down over the ladder and looks at me in a way I will never forget. "Someone's been living up here," he says quietly, "for a while." Later, from the safety of the hallway, I glimpse what they pulled down, a flattened mattress of cardboard and old blankets, piles of empty food wrappers that used to be in my trash, plastic bottles, a bucket. Most of it they won't let me see closely, but one officer shows me a notebook sealed in a plastic bag. Inside, page after page of my life, leaves around 7:40 a.m. most days, calls mum Sunday nights, sleeps facing wall, cries after phone calls. On the last page, the handwriting presses harder into the paper. "She's starting to hear me. Might need to move on soon, or bring her up here with me." They never find him. The crawlspace opens into a maze of old rafters that leads, apparently, toward another building on the block. They think he slipped out when I came home early once, or when the first siren started echoing down the street. Frank won't look me in the eye. A neighbor later tells me another tenant in that unit left suddenly a couple years back after hearing things. No one told me that when I signed. I don't sleep there again. I break the lease, pay a fee I can't afford, move to another top floor place across town, newer building, supposedly no attic, concrete and steel. I tell myself I'm safe now. The first week in the new apartment, I finally start to relax. Different neighborhood, different landlord, different ceiling. Then, one night, I turn off the TV and lie in the dark. Above me, somewhere past the drywall, there's a single soft creak, then another. I tell myself it's just the building settling, because this time, there's no way anyone could be up there, right? I still sleep with the light on, just in case he finds the ceiling again. The fiberglass paths in the attic of my grandfather's farmhouse in rural Ohio aren't the part that scares me. The real horror is what he wrote up there, not about himself, about me. My whole life recorded in those dusty journals, arguments, secrets, even thoughts I never said out loud, written years before some of them ever happened. This is my true horror story from rural Ohio, and it starts the day I went up to clean out his attic. My grandfather's house sits off a 2-lane road outside Lancaster in southeastern Ohio. When he died last fall, he left the place to me. I live in Columbus in a small apartment with paper-thin walls, so an old paid-off farmhouse sounded like a blessing. The plan was simple: clear it out, list it, sell it, move on. The inside still smells like his Old Spice and dust. Wood paneling, avocado green kitchen, a TV that probably hasn't been turned on since the Buckeyes won a national title. The attic hatch is in the hallway ceiling, a square of chipped white paint with a thin rope dangling. When I pull it, a ladder unfolds and a warm, stale breath of air spills down. The attic is low and hot, lined with pink fiberglass between grey beams. Long, flattened tracks where people have walked the same routes for decades. Careful little paths in the attic, worn into the insulation. Cardboard boxes line one wall. Christmas, tools, taxes. But it's the far corner that catches my eye. There, stacked knee-high, are dozens of slim black notebooks and 2 shoeboxes of tiny tape cassettes. Every spine is labeled in his neat block handwriting with dates. The earliest is from the year I was born. I pick one at random, June 2009. I flop down on a sheet of plywood, bridging the beams and open to the middle. The first line punches the air out of my lungs. June 11, 8:23 p.m. She slams the bedroom door. She's wearing the blue hoodie with the frayed cuff. She tells her mother, "You don't get to read my diary anymore." I remember that fight. I was 16, in our old house in Pickerington. My mum had snooped. I'd screamed at her. But my grandfather wasn't even in Ohio that year. He was living in Florida, recovering from surgery. I flip the page. He calls at 9:02. She lies and says, "I'm fine, Grandpa." She bites the inside of her cheek until it bleeds, so she doesn't cry into the phone. I never told anyone I did that. My skin goes cold in the sweltering attic air. I tell myself it's a coincidence, a story, a guess. So I grab another notebook. 2014. Entry after entry is about me. She hides cash behind the third book on the left of the second shelf. She rewrites the text 3 times before hitting send. She mouths, "I'm sorry," in the dark after he hangs up. These aren't things you see from across a room. Some of them are things I barely admitted to myself. I notice something else. The early notebooks read like surveillance from inside our old house. She's in bed, lights off. I can hear the vent buzzing. I look down. Near the notebooks there are small, rough cutouts in the attic floor, ragged holes just wide enough to peer through. I crawl carefully along the fiberglass parts and line my eye up with one. Inside the wall is an old metal duct, the kind that fed the floor vents in our old split level. If this attic had been over that house, he would have been able to hear almost every room. I should put the notebooks back. Instead, I open one of the cassette boxes. Each tape is labeled with a date and time. I find a dusty recorder in the corner, pop in a tape, and hit play. At first, there's just breathing. Slow, careful. Then, faintly, a little girl's voice, singing to herself. My voice. A man whispers, barely audible, 4:12 p.m. She's writing in her diary again. She hid the key under the third floorboard from the left. I remember that hiding place. No one ever found it. I fast forward. Another tape. Years later. Now it's my adult voice, in my old apartment in Dayton, arguing with an ex. The recorder describes every line before I say it, like he's reading a script of my life. I'm shaking when I pull a newer notebook from the stack. Dated 5 years ago. The first entry hits too close. Funeral day. She stands at the casket in the small church off Route 22. She touches the polished wood with her left hand and thinks, "You knew more about me than anyone." That was yesterday. I turn to the next page. Today's date. She climbs into the attic. She sees the fiberglass paths and the labeled boxes. She opens this notebook. She feels watched. My heart slams. I read the next line. She stops reading this sentence. Her heart is racing. She looks over her left shoulder. I freeze. I don't want to. But I do. I look over my left shoulder. Nothing's there but dust and shadows. The words were already written. Farther back in the pile is a notebook with a date 1 week from now. Almost every page is blank, except the last written one. She's trapped in the attic in the dark. The hatch won't open. She's pounding on it, voice hoarse, begging to be let out. She promises she'll keep writing if it lets her go. I slam it shut. For the first time, it hits me. Maybe my grandfather wasn't just spying. Maybe something else was writing through him, and now it's waiting for me to pick up the pen. I decide to leave. Now. I climb down, grab my bag, head for the front door. My hand touches the knob. Then I remember my car keys are still upstairs. I swear under my breath, turn around and go back up. In the attic, the air feels thicker. The light bulb flickers once, twice, then steadies. I tell myself, grab the keys, ignore the notebooks. But my eyes slide to a volume on top of the stack I don't remember seeing. No date on the spine. My fingers open it before I can stop them. She tells herself she'll ignore the notebooks. She can't. She reaches for the new one instead. Her right hand is trembling. I snap it shut. Behind it is another, thin and worn. The last one with my grandfather's handwriting. The final entry is jagged, the ink pressed hard. I can't keep up. It's too fast now. It's writing itself through me. Tonight it said she'll join me up here. It said she will finally see it. She will see. The line trails off into a long slash, like the pen was yanked away. The attic feels smaller. There's another set of breathing now, slow and patient, that doesn't match mine. A cardboard box I hadn't noticed before sits by the far beam, no label. Inside, blank notebooks, a dozen of them. I lift the top one. The first line on the first page is in fresh ink, my handwriting. She turns to look behind her, finally realizing she isn't alone up here. I feel the tug of the sentence like a string in my spine. I turn. I don't remember deciding to sit at the little desk pushed under the eaves, but I'm here now. Days, weeks, time doesn't feel real in this low, hot space. The hatch opens sometimes. People's voices drift up. Realtor, buyers, inspectors. No one ever comes all the way in. They think my grandfather's granddaughter emptied the house and sold it through a lawyer in Columbus. Maybe she did. Maybe I just stayed. My hand aches constantly. The notebooks are filling with someone else's words. Right now I'm writing a true story about someone sitting in the dark, watching a horror video on YouTube. I'm writing about you. I write about the glow of your screen on your face, the way you keep glancing at your own ceiling, the faint sounds in your house you usually ignore. If you want to hear more stories like mine, subscribe. But maybe don't watch the next one alone, because when you finally hear that faint creak above you, you'll tell yourself it's just the house settling, the same way I did.